How's it going, Truthers? This is Ben here, and we need to talk about John Macarthur. I want to give an update on what happened with him and his court battle with California and his defying of Gavin Newsom and everybody in California's commands that you can't hold church indoors. Now, I apologize real quick if I sound a little under the weather. Me and my wife are really sick right now. We're on a lot of medication. We might possibly have COVID. We're going to get tested. But just wanted to let you know, so if I take a drink of water, if I sound a little funky, that's why. That's okay. Even if we do have COVID, God's still sovereign. That's how that works. But anyways, yeah, so let's talk about John Macarthur. So let me give you a little history, just real quick in background. So John Macarthur, several months ago, was told that he could not reopen his church because of COVID concerns, right? They didn't want people meeting indoors because they didn't want them to be too close. They weren't adhering to the 6-foot separation rule, given recommended by the CDC and the WHO. Well, John MacArthur was pushing back against that because also California and the leaders out there in Newsom were encouraging Black Lives Matter's protests. They were encouraging people to get out and to protest and to riot and burn things. They probably didn't say it just like that, but they were allowing them to do that and highly encouraging that, saying it was a freedom of speech. Thousands of people could be funneled right next door, right shoulder to shoulder, marching with people, lighting things on fire, protesting, rioting, doing whatever they wanted to. They didn't have any issues with that. But when it comes to church services, no. That's where we draw the line. So that's what started the whole thing. It wasn't just John MacArthur just being like, let's just defy the government today. No, it was the hypocrisy and the irony that Newsom and everybody in California was pushing onto the church. So that was how it started. So then next after that, California started to threaten John MacArthur because John MacArthur and Phil Johnson and the people at Grace to You decided that they were going to open anyways. Because apparently, if you're rioting and protesting, you don't get COVID. But if you're worshiping God indoors, you do get COVID. Apparently that's how that works. So John MacArthur, Phil Johnson, decided to go ahead and reopen. Because if California isn't going to enforce their laws and restrictions on one group of people, then why should they do it on another group of people? So California threatened to do things to them. First, they threatened that they were going to turn off the power. They were going to shut down the power to the church, to the property, so there'd be no power inside, so they would have to meet outdoors. Well, that didn't work. Well, then the John MacArthur was threatened with arrest, right? They decided that they were going to try to threaten to arrest him. So what ended up happening was John MacArthur, when he was kind of left with no option because of the hypocrisy and irony of California, and they were threatening legal actions against him, he decided to sue California. He sued Newsom. He sued several other people. I have an article here. I'm going to read it to you in a minute. But he ended up suing them, and then what ended up happening was he goes against California, sues them, and a judge rules in favor of MacArthur. So MacArthur actually wins. So in a landmark victory, which is very shocking to see it come out of California, they uphold the constitutional right that John MacArthur can actually meet if he wants to. So let me take a drink of water and we'll get into the article here. Now I'm reading this from CBN News. It's titled, Historic Win, John MacArthur Claims Victory in Lawsuit Over Church Restrictions. So let's look at it. It's an update. So update, a judge ruled late Friday afternoon that Grace Community Church in Sun Valley, California can continue hosting indoor worship services and does not have to adhere to any attendance caps or bans on singing, right? Because that was one thing they also tried to do. Is they were trying to ban singing, right? And they're like, well, okay, maybe you can meet, but you can't sing, right? Because all that hot air that's emitting from you, that's gonna spread it. No, not protesting and lighting things on fire, not actually making heat with fire with matches that you use to light a building on fire. No hot air coming from your lungs. That's much more detrimental. Continuing on in the filing, submitted Thursday by attorneys Jenna Ellis and Charles Lamondre, hope I'm saying that right, MacArthur's Grace Community Church in Sun Valley has sought to prohibit California from enforcing its unconstitutional and onerous coronavirus pandemic regulations against the congregation. So pretty much what I already said there, they're fighting back against the fact that it's unconstitutional because it's hypocritical, ironic, and they're not equally enforcing the rules on everybody. MacArthur said in a response to the court's rulings, I am very grateful the court has allowed us to meet inside, and we are happy for a few weeks to comply and respect what the judge has asked of us because he is allowing us to meet. This vindicates our desire to stay open and serve our people. This also gives us opportunity to show that we are not trying to be rebellious or unreasonable, but that we will stand firm to protect our church against unreasonable, unconstitutional restrictions. And that's important because he isn't just doing this out of the blue like I mentioned earlier. He's not just saying, we just feel like opening church. No, what he's saying is Well, if these people over here can do this and you don't care, but if we do this and you do care, why should we listen to you? It's a double standard. It's two-sided. So I think that was important to point out. In addition to suing Newsom, this is what I was talking about, the list of people that he's suing. He sued Newsom, Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, California Attorney California Attorney General Xavier Becerra. As legal proceedings get underway, Macarthur has pledged to keep the doors of the church open to serve Angelenos eager to return to Sunday morning services. The lawsuit pointed to the double standard that's been applied to Black Lives Matter protests, who have been allowed and even encouraged to flood the streets by the thousands, while churches have been forced to keep their sanctuaries closed over concerns worship services could cause spikes in coronavirus infections. They have witnessed, this is Macarthur speaking, they have witnessed how the onerous restrictions imposed on them by public officials to allegedly fight the COVID-19 pandemic simply do not apply to certain favored groups, states Macarthur's lawsuit. When many went to the streets to engage in political or peaceful protests, and they weren't peaceful, purportedly against racism and police brutality, these protesters refused to comply with the pandemic restrictions. Instead of enforcing the public health orders, public officials were all too eager to grant a de facto exception for these favored protesters, because obviously they want their votes. That's the only reason, right? They don't actually care about these people. They don't actually care about, police brutality or racism or whatever it is that they're saying they're protesting against. No, these people in government, they just want their vote. Lamondre argued it is unconstitutional for Newsom and his cohorts to discriminate against churches by treating them less favorably than other organizations and activities that are not protected by the First Amendment. He continued, this is especially the case when the government has given free rein to protesters and is not similarly restricting marijuana dispensaries, large retail outlets and factories, and abortion providers. So it's okay to murder your children. We're not going to close that down because that's essential. It's okay to get your marijuana because everybody knows you need your drugs. You can't just stop smoking because there's a pandemic. Everybody knows that large retailers like Walmart can't be closed because, well, it's Walmart and they'd lose money. Yeah, abortion. Yeah, Planned Parenthood, you better believe they stayed open. So this whole thing just breaks down to John Macarthur is responding to hypocrisy. It's not him being defiant. And I know there's a lot of people that are on the fence. Should we support this? Should we not support this? Is Macarthur doing the right thing? Is he being biblical? Is he being just defiant? Is he relying too much on the Constitution? And I think it's important for us to look at this and see that John Macarthur is looking at this long term. He sees what's coming. He sees the writing that's on the walls, right? That's a biblical analogy. And he knows that if somebody doesn't take a stand now, then there will be no stopping it. He's saying, well, if they're doing this now, and they're forcing things on us that they're not enforcing on other people, well, then what's going to stop them in the future from, banning our speech altogether, or shutting down our churches, or making Christianity illegal? And that all is coming. It really is. It's coming everywhere. It's coming to every state in America, but he's trying to preemptively get ahead of this, I think is what's happening. I haven't spoken with him, obviously, but I'm assuming that's what he's doing. He's trying to get ahead of this movement while he still has constitutional backing and legal authority. Because he may not have that in the future. Grace Community Church may not have in the future. We may not have that in the future. So regardless of what you think of the coronavirus pandemic, I think it's important to support Macarthur because he's taking a stand in the most liberal, evil, sinful state in America by far. Between that, it's that and New York. And we know that the reason Newsom is doing this isn't, the underlying reason is because he's evil. It's sin. It's sin nature. I talked about politics. You can talk about liberals and conservatives and Republicans and Democrats and votes and things like that. And all those are valid points to bring up. But in the end, it's sin. He is a sinner. And he's evil. He's an enemy of God, and he needs to be resisted. And I fully support John Macarthur and everything that he has done during this entire pandemic, during this whole legal proceeding. And I think we should too. So before you're too quick to jump on John Macarthur, regardless of how you feel about the coronavirus and COVID and the pandemic, I think we need to support him as a brother in Christ first. Understand why he's doing what he's doing. And then, we can argue the particulars after that, but I don't think what he's doing is unbiblical. I don't think it's wrong. I don't think it's sinful. I think he's doing it in order to protect his church and Christianity in general. So let's get behind him and support him. All right, guys, I hope this has helped. This has been a follow-up. I know a lot of people, it's pretty new, and a lot of people have been wondering, what's going on with John MacArthur in California and the courts and this lawsuits and all things. So as it stands right now, John MacArthur has won. He won his lawsuit. So for now, Grace Community Church can stay open. Now let me give my prediction real quick. This isn't over. Of course it's not over. People like this never stop. Evil never stops. Behind this, we have the spiritual world that's behind this, and they don't take naps. They don't sleep. They're always going to keep pushing. They might push forward, and then they get knocked back, and then they push forward, and they get knocked back, and they just push. And eventually, there's going to have to come to a point where people are going to start getting arrested. There's going to be, police are going to be involved and things like that. And obviously, Christianity is going to go through actual persecution, not just, social media, Facebook persecution, actual persecution. And we need to be ready for that. But as it stands for now, this is a small victory. All right, guys, thanks for stopping by. If you like this video, like it. Comment down below. What do you think about John MacArthur? Do you approve of what he's done? Do you think he's being sinful? Is he violating biblical commands? If he is, why is he violating biblical commands? Give some your biblical reasons. Obviously, support it in the comments down below. And do me a favor and subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date for more comment like this. And thanks for stopping by, guys. See ya.